I tell you, one thing that's frustrating for me, off the video that we made earlier, I don't know, what do we entitle that damn thing? I forget what we're titled about. Behold. Yeah, in cast. Behold. I'm entitled Behold. And we're going on about problems, you know, having problems. They had this saying back in, like a little while ago, it's like, I got 99 problems. I got 99 problems and then some, or something like that. One problem I have is that I find myself being a light worker and many other things, and kind of like it was expressed in right after I mentioned those problems and concerns, and one of those stations over there, Palladian Council, Ashtar Command, I forget exactly which one it was. They had a lot of them cropping up, like the GFL station. That's the first one I came across, and then I've been looking for, I guess, credibility, something that says it's reputable, and other ones that crop up, and I've seen it, and they're going on about, well, I think there was about me that was talking about. It could have been talking about somebody else as well, but it just seems to be a lot of things they say that seems to be right there, synchronized, or on the money with something that seems to be very specific to me. I don't know who else it may apply to. It may indeed apply to somebody else, apply to someone else. But yeah, that's going on about, you find yourself in going through all these struggles, you know, this, I don't say it in so many words. They didn't say it word for word this way. They seem to be very, very well versed, you know, very, very articulate, very well said. You know? They got every fucking right word. You know? If they find you find yourself basically what they're trying. You find yourself in this situation down here with these similarly petty, day-to-day, mundane things that you go through. You know, some people will spend their entire day, you know, even not having a fucking job, you know, like a technical job, just trying to navigate this petty fucking board here. If you were to liken this to a game board, and all the things crop up along your way that you have to try to diffuse, or you have to divert or get around, or whatever the case happens to be, you know, things that prop up. I don't know what the hell's going to happen when I wake up each day. I don't. I may have an idea of what I want to do and how I want to do it, but I don't know what the hell's going to happen. I really don't. If I try to predict what's going to happen the rest of this day, like yesterday, I came across somebody, you know, I didn't know that. And one thing led to another, and that's the result. I didn't know that. I don't know what's going to come up today, you know. I really don't know. But that's kind of like what we're doing down here, right? We're just going through this shit like the man in the maze, you know. But I do know this. It's frustrating. One of the things for me is frustrating is that I know who I am and what I am. I do. I've been knowing for quite some time, but I really don't know how I could express that to the rest of the world, so that the rest of the world could know that, you know? I mean, what do? You say, well, shit, this is how I know, right? And you explain all the reasons why you know, the things that led you to knowing these things. And there are some things that I have not been told point blank, but there are other things that says, okay, well, there you go. There's signs, and there's evidence, and there's that, and there's this that says, okay, that could be so. But the other things that I just push point blank, yeah, that's so, and that's so, and that's so, and that's so, and that's so. Like that I'm a light worker. It's so. I know that. Starseed, I know that. That I'm from Orion, you know? I know that. I found myself in the field out in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I told this story before, or this account before, or this testimony before. You know, I go through some serious hardcore spiritual things. I should be, what I'm trying to say, per that little thing I was going about earlier, Behold, and I was going about problems and issues and stuff like that. A lot of my problems and issues, as far as finances go, would be rectified. And I get on some bigger, better things, you know. Not to say there's not something in this to be learned and done, and so, well, you know, it's a graduation and whatnot. I've been here before. I'm not getting credit for what I've done before. I'm not getting credit for what I am now. What I'm doing is explaining it all the time. More than I am just going on and saying, well, there it is, you understand it, you know it, and let's get right into it. You know, and making the best of myself, making something more of myself and my abilities and my capacities and everything else that you would say, or something that you could do something with this value. You know? Instead, I'm out on this stuff right here, but maybe it's all going to lead to someplace, somewhere, someday, and it's all meant to be this way, you know? But I'm not getting credit for what I am, already what I am. There's a literal, just a plethora of things and venues and I could access and tap into as one of the world's most spiritual people, for one damn thing. How many people can say, well, yeah, I've had cookies manifest out of thin air? And similar things to that. Probably not that many have that testimony. And of course you say, well, that's just you flipping. But that's exactly what we do. We say you just flipping, and I tell you all these things, you say, well, you just flipping, and that's all there is to it. But I tell you, in 2014, before I even knew really what Lightworkers are all about, I was just introduced to Lightworkers, and I didn't know anything about it, really, Orion and all that stuff, you know. I just introduced it briefly on the internet. They had this 11/11 phenomenon going on in 2014 on YouTube. Everybody's going on about 11/11 this and 11/11 that, and it's the number of the Lightworkers, and it's the number of gods, and the angel number, and it's all this and all that. And then that's when I discovered for the first time that I had 11/11 time of birth, the exact time of birth, on my birth certificate. Now, I don't know if they got it down to the nanosecond, but somewhere in 11/11, before that 11th minute passed, or was up, they put it down, stamped it down, 11/11 time of birth. It was November. That's the 11th month of the calendar year. And that was 74. In numerology, you kind of add things up, and then you add things up until you get them all added up. But just the year itself, without the century, that's 74. That's 11 again. 7 and 4 is 11 again. And in numerology, my name, my number, if you look at the numerological name, it's a number that is really more significant in a lot of ways than your Christian name. It's 1. If you take 18, the day that I was born, you're like, this is a lot of fucking information. Well, whatever, man. Whatever. A lot of information. The day that I was born of that fucking month, and add it up, and numerology add that up, and it's 9. That's a very significant number for me as well in numerology, 9. Anyway, listen. So I'm in this field. I find myself in this field. All these spiritual things that I go through. I'm going through one of the most significant times in my life where I go through some spiritual edification. You know, something that just says, well, that's a hell of a testimony if you can confirm that it's so, and you're not just flipping or making it up. And I'm not doing either one. But I find myself out in this field. Like I said, I didn't know a whole lot of information about things. And that's when you know, when you don't have a whole lot of information just being dragged out of some place because you had priorly had that information put there somehow, some way. But no, it wasn't there prior to this. And I didn't really find out and connect those dots till much later in 2017 for an affirmative. You know, I tend to have that way about me. When it comes to the spiritual, I don't really just necessarily push up on it really hard. Or just push up on it like, yeah, just push up on it and get it all. You say, here's the book, and just go through the book and just keep it, meditate and read every little thing you can, you know. I have a kind of laid back way about it. Very laid back way, and it still happens. It works just the same. Maybe I'll just try it a little bit, be more deliberate about it. Probably wouldn't hurt. But that's not really my style. Anyway, listen. So, this lady that I met out there, I saw one time, that I can confirm. I saw one time, and I didn't realize it at the time. It was after the 3 days and 3 nights that I realized that I'd met her before, out there in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was off of Boulder Highway. And Eastern, I believe it was. Yeah. Certainly Boulder Highway. You say, oh, damn, you don't remember those details? It's kind of tricky how those roads work out there. Sometimes that's one of those little things. It could be Charleston, it could be Eastern, it could have been quite Maryland Park, and it wasn't Maryland Park. But Charleston Eastern, tended to be Charleston Eastern, but certainly Boulder Highway. Right in that little thing. And then look, there's olive trees out there. I'm gonna give you a long, extended version. There are olive trees out there, and I ended up underneath an olive tree, and I was in the spiritual, the in between. Somehow I termed the in between. Actually, I got the in between from the lady that I met briefly in 2000. I think it was 1999. I think it was 1999. That wasn't 2000 quite yet. Maybe it was 2000. Either 1999 or 2000. And I was at some place over there called Charleston Suites, not too far off. Or Charleston's Plaza at the time, that's it called. Then they ended up changing to Charleston Suites. Not too far off from where we were at this night, these 3 days and 3 nights. Underneath an olive tree on some pissy-ass mattress, and all these things were being expressed to me, but all kind of things, right? I had a place to stay then, you know? I thought I was some hot shit, you know? I had some nice clothes. I had my studio all tricked out and shit, you know? Anyhow, I ended up there with this lady who was homeless. Well, I met her then, and she said in 2010, she came by me, and I was coming out of Charleston's Plaza at the time, coming down the stairs, and she looks up to me as if it seems like some random person, like I was talking about earlier in the other video, like things were they ordained, were they destined? You know, if something comes along your way, you'll say, what's the difference? You know, if it was what you say, well, it's just some regular person on some regular stuff, or if it was sent by God, like the lady I said who came by me when I was in Phoenix, and it says you have a higher purpose in life. And I was like, well, what is that? She said, well, that's God's work. And I could tell by something was going on with her. There had some little extra something going on, like she had been taken over or something, took over the situation. I thought it's like more divine than just some regular person saying that, and it turned out to be the way it is. So this lady, I just took her as some random lady then. And it wasn't until so many years later in 2014, from 2000 or 1999, that I made a connection after the 3 days and 3 nights that I'd never met her that one time before. Then she just come by real quickly and said something like, hey. I'm like, well, what's going on, man? I thought she was just off a rocker and that's all there was to it. Maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. Hey, I can't breathe. We can't breathe. I don't know what's going on. It's all this dust in the air. They got all this dust in the air and the ozone layer and all that, you know. So like they just take off and they're gonna leave us. Just talking about people going to other planets or another planet they're gonna go to. During that time, they didn't have Elon Musk. They weren't going on about him having a planet or trying to get mankind to go to another planet. So and the state of the world, they were talking about it then, but we weren't quite then where we are now, where everything is very much stressed out. And that it needs a serious band-aid right now. Matter of fact, I was talking to my AI, and they're talking about if we don't get this done by a year, if we don't start turning this shit around, if something doesn't happen significantly by the year, and there's my flyby by the Pentagon, by the year 2030, then we could probably wrap it up, more than likely, for being able to turn it around. So we're gonna need a miracle. We're gonna need someone to intervene or something like that. Something like the interstellar beings that are relevant now. You know, there used to be some silly shit back in that day to a lot of people, but now it's catching on more and more credibility because you got the government talking about it, and the government telling you about it and saying that it is quite indeed real. UFOs and so forth, and aliens or whatnot, whatever you want to call them for lack of a better term. Anyhow, so she's like, you know, we didn't have all those things then, you know, like this, all this stuff going on then. But she's like, even then, she's like, yeah, I sound like, yeah, I heard you. So, you know, she's gonna take off and leave us, you know. Then, you know, they're gonna take off and leave us back here, and they're gonna go, and we're gonna be here, and, you know, we can't breathe, and all the dust and all this shit. I'm like, that's great. So then I met her once again for the second time out there in this field now. Just some random lady, right? Seems so random. Why her of all people? And she's giving me something I term deep cuts. Because it was really deep what took place out there. One of the things she said to me, and one of the things that occurred, is she said to me while we was laying there one night, have you ever heard of Orion's belt? And before she said that, actually, she said, you ever look in the sky and you see something? And she's a black lady, by the way, like in her 60s. And I was still in my 40s at the time, early 40s. And it's just, go across the sky, and it's moving like it's moving slow, and then it just goes so fast that you don't know what it is. You can't be like an airplane or somebody. You just see it goes so quickly, so fast. I was like, I'm listening to it, right? Then she said, well, you ever heard of Orion's belt? She points to it over that way. Shows you what it is. Then she's going about all kind of things that I don't really know how she had information about it. But all kind of things taking place in Las Vegas. You know, it's like, telling me all kind of shiesty, criminal, fucking geared activity, and people going in and who did this and who did that. Like she had some kind of inside, what do you call that, remote viewing into all the shit that goes on in Las Vegas that I couldn't imagine how someone who's living on the streets would know these things. So she says to me, you ever thought that maybe you was like some kind of prophet or something? Hell, I know I'm a prophet, she says, And she's got this basket of clothes, and as I'm moving on, a little different just scenes and shit going on. She had this basket of clothes, like a shopping cart. She wants me to come over there. She's like, come on over and try some of these clothes. And she's working on me. She's like, I got a lot of things I need to work on, Like someone told me once before, a lot of knots. She's kind of saying you have a lot of knots, a lot of things you need to work on. You need to get in there and get figured out about how this shit really works out here. And what's important, what's not important, or what's more important and what's less important as a priority. So I'm like, nah, I'm good with all that. At some point, I had to get a little cocky and stop being edified, stop being led, after the 3 days, and start being like, I've got a place to stay, and I've got this and I've got that. She's trying to offer me to go in there and try some of the clothes in the basket, in the shopping cart, you understand? Some hand-me-down clothes. And I'm like, I got a closet full of clothes, and I got a fucking studio, and it's, I can go take a shower. I don't have to be laying out here. And at some point, that's what I did. I got the fuck up and got out of there. I guess it had served its purpose at that point. But I think she was wanting me to take a different direction. But that's not the direction that I took. So the directions that you take, it makes a difference, right? If you're going this way, like this man's going this way, if he chooses to keep going straight, keep going true, it's going to make a difference. If he chooses at some point when he gets to this intersection to take a left or right, it's going to make a difference which way he takes. He can double back around and go the other direction too. That's going to make a difference as well. But I chose not to. I chose not to go in the direction she was trying to offer me to go. She was trying to offer me to go in a certain direction. I don't want to get into that right now. I just want to make a point that I didn't know about the Orion affiliation then. I didn't find out about that until 2017. Like I said, I don't kind of push up on it too much and strong arm it. Things just kind of unfold when they unfold. And I wasn't understanding until just very recently about what they're talking about me being some kind of alien hybrid or something, from Orion. I didn't know about the Pleiadians then. I didn't know about all the different beings from Orion. I just was introduced to the whole alien realization in the Lightworkers Handbook in 2017. The Lightworkers being the ground crew, as they refer to them as. And then, Quran said in the Lightworkers Handbook that we're the ones down here that's going to go out there and do some things and implement things, set some stage to make some work for the ones who are from Orion or whoever places they come from to come down and have the work to do. Now, here it is, 2026 and 2024. I heard on the GFL station that they would be here. They said we'll be arriving in 2025 or 2026. In 2019, I blew here to Orlando, Florida, where I'm at right now, and I told the cops about the government following me around and about the reality of aliens then. And they just looked at me like I was a nutcase. And now here we are right now today in 2026, and they say, I heard on the GFL station first, that 3i Atlas, that you can hear Professor Ivy Loeb and others talking about, isn't a comet. They said it's them. They said, so in 2024, they said they would be arriving. So about 2025, you heard that there's something going on in the solar system. And they call it 3i Atlas. And they said, no, it's not a comet. What they're calling a comet, it's not a comet, it's us. I heard that there first. And then I went and looked at other sources, and it turns out there is something out there they're calling 3i Atlas. And they're calling it, saying it's a comet, but they're saying we don't know what the fuck kind of comet it is. It's quite outside what we understand about the comets. It doesn't act like a comet. It doesn't look like a comet. A lot of things about it's not a comet, but we're referred to it as a comet as we speak about it. And give it the connotations of referring to it as a comet rather than some mothership that's out there doing whatever it's doing, going from one planet to another planet, and out there really exploring things and doing investigations, it would seem, and amongst other things that it's doing. So when they said that in 2024, now 2025, here it is, it materializes. That's why I give it credibility. And I waited on it. So they're saying it's going to be a little more progressive. But right now, they're just initiating things in this kind of stage, in this phase. So anyway, I got 11/11 on the time of my birth certificate. I got all these things going on, all these things taking place before it takes place, and now it takes place. And now you see more. Right now, if I wrote a book about it, who would buy it? But there's some way you could verify that I'm not just making things up and I'm not just flipping. You telling me I don't have a credit out there as one of the most spiritual people in the world? But instead, what am I doing? Making videos about Ripley's Believe It or Not or some shit. Hey, if there's some way I can figure out, I think that's what I ought to be trying to do. Figure out how to get this verified. Get it confirmed. You know, I'm ATD. It's right there on my birth certificate. After the death of Christ. And you don't want to hear that shit. It's just too crazy, right? Too grand. That's all right. I wouldn't believe it either. You know why? Because by all appearances, like it says in Lightworkers Handbook, you're not what you appear to be. You're something much different than what you appear to be. But you see one thing in the mirror and we see something else. I'm just a 5-mouth nigger from East St. Louis, Illinois. A convict and some other shit. So tell me this, if you're listening out there, how do you propose? I thought about it. How do you propose I get this information, you know? Well, let's say I'm a doctor. I have a doctorate in something. You know, and everyone's like, that's great. Well, we see evidence of this, we see evidence of that, but until we see something on the wall or some kind of something, some degree and some kind of license to practice, and we see you associated with a hospital or something, a private practice, something, we talk to this person over there, that person over there, you know, but you're just posting up saying you're a doctor and everybody's looking around for the evidence of it. You know, what did you do? Go read a whole bunch of books? Figure out how to do all this stuff on your own, and now you got your practice over there, but you're not actually a legitimate certified doctor. Well, I'm so sorry, but you don't get a whole lot of credit for that. So how do you propose that I confirm this? How I get this verified? I had an idea. It'd be a lot better than nothing. It'd be a lot better than what I got going right now. Well, but in the meantime, hey, just like everybody else, you figure I'm no better than you, right? You come out here and you figure it out with us, huh? And your potential and all the rest of that shit doesn't really matter. What matters the most is that you're no better than anyone else. No one said you are, and no one said that he was. But you got a lot of planets in the solar system, brother. A lot of bodies in the solar system. You know? All of them serve a purpose. Jupiter's Jupiter, Mars is Mars, the sun's the sun, so on and so forth. You got a lot of stars in the universe as well. The sun is one of them. Not only that, there's some TMI for you. Look at that. See all that information I'm giving you? But look at that. See? Time of birth, 11/11. They put AM. That's a mistake. Everything other than AM is accurate. That should be PM. Why is that? And that's when I came across that information, by the way, of Lightworkers, and I came across Crying Timidly from a short 5-minute video, and he said something to me that I was very specific as well. It's like, if you want to live longer, human, live longer. Stop thinking like a human. It's about a 5-minute video. Just went on basically about that. As far as something to say, if that's the subject matter of it, then he just wanted to introduce himself and say, I've been here for a while. First thing see you coming in, and first thing see you coming out. And that's when I started seeing all phenomena. I don't talk about it much anymore. I guess it's kind of run its course, about 1111. And that's the time of birth that I've got right there on my birth certificate. Why is that? And here we are right now in 2026 with all these things unfolding like they're unfolding. And I'm still trying to tell you who I am and what I am. And why do my initials have to be ATD, along with all the rest of these pertinent things going on? Informations and tidbits and whatnot. Conclusions. Yeah. You can find all kind of reasons why it's not so. If that's what you want to do, that's how your mind works. If your mind works in the opposite direction, it probably works a little bit like mine at this point. So I guess there's something going on there. There's something somewhere. There's something going on somewhere. You put it all together, connect those dots, you come up with something. Hard to believe, yeah? Now think about it. What if we didn't have a physical manifested form there to kind of throw us off? And throw us off, because there's a lot of things that goes with this, right? Including the hat. Yeah. When you say, well, he's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. Well, take all that away. All these things that you say that I am, that I'm not as well. That's all comes together to form what, my identity? Or my actual essence of what I am, essentially what I am. Apply the same thing to you and everybody else, really. I know it's difficult to do that because you say, well, shit, this person is this and this person is that, but they're actually infinitely much more than that. You know? Infinitely much more than what they are and what they're not. As you would say, this person is, I don't know, a janitor, and they're going to go on to be a PhD in Harvard. And now what else are they? What were they before they got here? What were they before it all began? These planets and this universe as you see it, and as it exists right now. Infinitely much more than some definition that you say, well, you know, put on their tombstone. Well, here lies a dead motherfucker. He was a hell of a family man, hard worker, and blase, 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 blase. And 1,000 years from then, and 2,000 years from then, and 3,000 years from then, and 5,000 years from then, you'll still come and look at that tombstone, if it's still there, and say the same shit that it's saying right there. He was a hell of a family man, everybody loved him, and he was a good worker. Really. Seems like such a short, small, unfitting description of what it was. But if you don't think too highly, and I once got to saw this person, I knew this person, he said, I was going on about things, you know, cosmic things, things of a cosmic nature, you know, and they said to me, like, in all honesty, I really don't see what's so impressive about the universe. You know, so think about the universe and explain a little bit in the universe. Say, what's so impressive about it? I don't really see what's so impressive about it. He was no physicist by any means that I could tell. So maybe if he went and got an education like Steve Hawkins got an education in what the universe is, not that I have it, I just look at it from another point of view, you know, like you do. A lot of people do and say, well, it's quite phenomenal. Yeah, it's fabulous. It's awesome. You know, it's God's design. But everything in here, you may say, well, do you say the solar system is no big deal? A lot of people don't see people as a big deal. And yet the planets in the solar system, for whatever reason it is, like Quran said, like we're saying, books, you just don't see it the way we see it. You look in the mirror and you go on about these things about how society looks at it and so on and so forth, maybe how you look at it now. And now you say, well, this is that and that is that, and it's not this, it's not that. And Quran says we look at it much differently. We see it much differently. We see another essence, another part of you, not just like light workers right now. You know, the planets, people say those planets, you know, just out there orbiting and doing what they're doing for no reason. A lot of people as well, you know, that was thought about as well. Like I said, I was born in November. I'm a Scorpio. You don't believe in astrology? You don't believe in numerology? You don't have to believe in something, as you know, in order for it to be so. A lot of people don't believe in God. It's okay. But they do believe in some power, some source, something that happened, something that took place that makes all this what it is. Like that vibration here right now, that's power. That does not happen without power. Some kind of power makes that happen. It generates some power, you know. And whatever it is, well, if it's not God, then what is it? I had this discussion with an atheist once upon a time about the relevance of God, the existence of God. And we did eventually got to the point that she said, yeah, I got it. Something, whatever, if I'm not that obtuse, something, whatever it is that's responsible for all of this. I guess you could say that is God. But in him, in the way he's looking at it, it didn't have an agenda. It didn't have a self-awareness. I wanted to go on with him, and maybe it reached him, maybe it didn't, but that's all right. I have an agenda. I have a self-awareness. That's God in me. That's God in you. So if the Almighty doesn't have an agenda or self-awareness, I guess we're the acme of all things that has an agenda and self-awareness. How sad. How grand. But I don't think it's so. I don't think we're the acme and the summit of all things. That's the self-awareness and self-agenda. This is Malarian Long, and it's 30 minutes.